Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Sea Deer Pants Hangout. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I will be your host for today. I'm really excited to be able to take classrooms on a virtual field trip today to Ripley's Aquarium of Canada in Toronto, Ontario, here in Canada. Today, we're going to join Danielle Eisner. She's going to tell us all about sand tiger sharks and some of their ecology and habits. And we're also going to see aquarist Pierre as he feeds the sand tiger sharks today at the aquarium. So Danielle, it's so great to have you joining us today, and we're really excited to learn more about the sand tiger shark.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here with all of you and all the sharks. I did tell them that you were going to be here, and they're all so excited. That's why they come by to get their food. So today, you'll see our turtle come by. She's actually being called to the back where she's going to get food way over on another side of the habitat. But today we're talking about sand tiger sharks, and Pierre here. Give us a wave, Pierre.
Hello.
Hello. So Pierre is going to be feeding the sand tiger sharks. So we have lots of different food for our sand tiger sharks today. So we have different types of fish and some large squid that I saw go in earlier, and you'll probably see again soon. And they don't actually have to eat every day, so we don't really worry too much if they aren't eating every day, as we do record how much they are eating to make sure that they are getting the right amount of nutrition for their diet and their body size. So if you look at the food that we have right now, there's no head and tail on that fish, and you might know that in the wild, fish usually have heads and tails, and that's to save our filters. Oh, that was a good almost bite. It's to save our filters, and also to make sure that we know exactly how much the sharks are eating. So we weigh each piece of food ahead of time, and we record how much each shark is eating to make sure, yeah, there, Emma's got a nice checklist. So we know how much each shark is eating, so that we know how their diet is changing over time. And usually the first sign of something not going so well in a shark is their diet will change. So they'll be eating a little bit less than they normally do. And that's one of the main reasons that we don't want them to eat the other fish in the habitat. So we have two areas where we're feeding the fish. We have one over there. You can see Jonathan throwing food in the water. And most of the fish are over there right now, and a few of them are over there getting the fish over on the other side from Caitlin. And then that distracts the fish away from the sharks, so they're not in the path of the sand tiger sharks when they're getting food. And sharks are not out to get us. Every single person you see here has dove with the sharks during our many different shark dives that we have. So people do scuba diving in here. Special aquarists have to go in order to feed our, to clean our habitats. The feeding for this habitat happens outside of the water, unlike some of the other animals where they get hand fed. So sharks do have lots and lots of teeth. You may not be able to see too much of their teeth from this angle, as we are above their faces and their mouths are on the bottom. However, if you ever come and visit, you can see people right down there. There's a lot of people right there. They're inside the shark tunnel, so you can see the sharks from the bottom up. You can see many, many of their teeth, and they do lose them throughout their lifetime. And when our divers go in the water, other than cleaning, they go and find treasures like shark teeth. And then they keep them for their own personal collections. Sharks go through about 50,000 teeth in their lifetime, so there's quite a number of teeth that they will go through. And they usually only work for about one meal. And these sharks have really, really skinny, pointy teeth. And the reason that they're skinny and pointy is to take meat off bones of a fish. Oh, there's some big squid right there. So the meat off the bones of a fish, like bones of fish are really, really close together. So in order for a shark to get that meat off and to eat it properly, they have to have really skinny teeth. If they have more of a triangular shaped tooth, then they're actually trying to eat things like mammals, because they're not trying to get meat off the bone, they're just trying to cut the skin. So you can tell what a shark eats based on the shape of their teeth. All of our sharks here are fish and shellfish eaters. They're not mammal eaters, because mammals for sharks are really hard to come by, because it's usually seals and otters, and that's a little bit different than feeding them a cow. So most often if you see an aquarium with like big sharks, they're fish eating sharks. Or maybe plankton eating, like a whale shark. So as you can see, our habitat is pretty large, but not the largest indoor habitat that you can have. So our sand tiger sharks like a more complex habitat. They live in coral reef areas. They don't need a lot of extra space, so This is an ideal habitat size for our sand tiger sharks. So sand tiger sharks, the biggest one in here is approximately almost 400 pounds. So that's pretty heavy, and is probably close to 10 feet long. So they're a fairly large animal, but they're docile and pretty shy. And Pierre can actually tell all these sharks apart just by the tiny little imperfections that they may have. So some of them have little nicks on their fins, and some of them have little spots. And that's how we're telling all of the sharks apart, so we know that they're eating properly. And here at our facility, we feed them 3 times a week. In the wild, they would only eat around 1 large meal a month. So they're not going to eat near as often as they do here in the wild, just because sharks are lazy. They wouldn't want to go after food that they may not actually get a chance to consume. So that's a little bit too much extra effort for them. So one of the cool things that's very unique about sand tiger sharks are they are the only shark that gulps air. So sand tiger sharks, in order to stay buoyant, so they're a little bit more lighter in the water column, they stick their heads out of the water, and yes, I've seen this before, and then they gulp air from the surface, and it goes into their stomachs, and then they can float a little bit better. It also means they're the only shark that can burp, which is pretty cool. And sharks usually are pretty good at staying buoyant because they have a very oily liver. All sharks have really, really large livers compared to the rest of their body size. However, the sand tiger shark is slightly better at staying closer to the surface as they can gulp air, which is lighter and easier to float with than the liquid in their liver, which is oil. And these sand tiger sharks here have, most of them have been here since we opened, so they love it here. And we are currently monitoring their mating behavior to make sure that if they are reproducing, then we can monitor to make sure that we are certain that they are going to have some children. However, right now, all we've noticed is mating behavior. So that means that they are biting each other. So you might notice some bite marks on them. It's kind of hard to see from this angle. It's kind of hard to see from this angle, but there are some bite marks on them that's completely normal for a shark, where they will have a little bit of extra markings on them as the males do bite the females during mating. And that's what we've observed so far, but no sharks in North America have reproduced successfully in captivity. And we'd love for that to happen here first, but we're just monitoring how they're using their habitat and how they're interacting with the other sharks on exhibit to see if they will actually eventually have a child. And again, the easiest way to tell is if their diet changes. So if they're going to be eating a little bit less, then that's a good sign that we may be on the road to having a sand tiger shark baby. And now sand tiger sharks are similar to other sharks where they give live birth, but they're, oh, that squid just fell apart. They're similar to other sharks where they have live birth, but one of the unique things about them is they can actually have 2 young, and the 2 young are in 2 different areas of their abdomen, and if there are any more than 2 in those areas, they'll eat their brothers and sisters and any unfertilized eggs. So this animal can actually only have a maximum of 2 babies at a time. And those 2 are like almost a meter long. So they're pretty big animals to start off their lives, which is amazing and a really good way for them to start off their lives with a good chance of survival. So if you're larger, there's a good chance you'll have less predators. Now that reproduction method is called ovoviviparity. So they are actually an egg inside of the parent, and then they birth out of the egg, and then they are just inside of the parent for a little bit until they're birthed out of the parent. And sand tiger sharks, like all other sharks, have their extra senses, so they can actually sense electrical impulses in the water. So normally, they would be hunting on their own, and they'd be sensing how a shark is swimming, and if they're swimming normal, or if another fish would be swimming, if this other fish is swimming normal, or if they're swimming a little bit more stressed, or if they're injured, and then the sharks would sense that, and those would be easier targets for them, and that's what they would normally go after. And they can sense that just because they can sense electrical impulses. So when our divers are in the water, they can sense the divers in the water with their heartbeat and all of that. So they can actually sense where the divers are and usually stay away from where the divers are. They are also really good swimmers. As long as they don't break the surface of the water, they don't actually create any ripples. So they are seamless swimmers, making them excellent predators to sneak up on their prey. And that's because they have these really excellent scales on the outside of their body that are made with dentin. And dentin is the material that is under enamel in our teeth. And that means when a shark swims through the water, it creates tiny little whirlpools behind them, which together mean that they swim immensely smoothly through the water. And the design of a shark, if you look at how they're shaped, is actually what is the inspiration for airplanes. So the reason that we use the same airplane shape as a shark is it is very streamlined and very good at lift, because a lot of sharks actually don't use a lot of effort to swim, and some sharks swim their entire lives. This shark has 2 different breathing methods, so they don't really have to swim their whole lives. So most often you'll see sharks swimming and they open and close their mouths, and the water will go in their mouth over top of their gills and out their gill slits. So that means that they are breathing while they're swimming. However, this animal can also do buccal pumping. So that means creating a negative chamber in their throat and then pulling the water in that way. So they can stay stationary for a little bit of time in order to breathe as well. Okay, well, that was a lot of splashing. Well, don't worry, I only got a tiny bit wet. Other than that, I just wanted to talk about some conservation. So sharks in general are not as scary as everybody thinks. And I know a lot of people think that sharks are incredibly scary animals and dangerous, but they're not. The biggest predator for us actually kills a lot of humans every year. It's the mosquito. And sharks are really not that dangerous. I know they're really good predators and they have really sharp teeth, but being afraid of them is a healthy thing to have, but they're really not out to get us. If they were, they would have evolved legs to walk on land to hunt us, or we would spend much more time in the water, which neither happens, so they're not naturally trying to eat us. Sharks get the bad reputation just because of stories, and it's a good way to sell those stories. So sharks in general are really amazing predators, really amazing swimmers as well, and they mostly like to eat fish. You think about how much you spend time in front of the computer or the TV, that's how lazy you are. Sharks don't like lazy animals. If you look at what we're feeding them, it's just all meat, no fat. Nice and good, healthy stuff for our sharks to eat. It's all restaurant quality stuff for our animals. So the easiest thing that you can do to help save our sharks in the wild and help make sure that more people are comfortable with these animals is and respects them is to spread awareness. So if you understand that these sharks are misunderstood animals and tell other people in a safe way, you can always use the internet and make sure that the others understand that sharks are good predators and they're just very misunderstood animals and they're not out to get us. And that actually saves a lot, because some areas in the world, they cut sharks' fins off just because they think they're scary, and they use them in some dishes, and that's not really good for these animals. It's very wasteful to just use the fins of an animal, and then it's also terrible to cull an animal just because you're afraid of them. That's absolutely ridiculous. That should never happen. I understand that people do eat fish, and that's completely fine. I'm not going to ask you not to, but you can definitely think about where your food is coming from. So you can look up on OceanWise, which is in Canada, or in the States, you can look up Sea Choice, it's SEA Choice, and you can find out which foods you should consume that are from the ocean or lakes that will not negatively impact our habitat. So they're a good choice of a food resource to help out our sharks and other fish in the wild. And as always, keep your amount that you are releasing into the world a little bit lower. So we're going to use more reusable items and as much reusable items as we can, as always. And yeah, our tarpon wants to have that apparently. We'll try to use as many reusable items as possible so less of them end up in the habitat of these lovely animals. And they do sometimes mistake it for food, just like all the others. All right, Joe, that is all I had to say. If you want to open it up for any questions.
All right. Well, Danielle, thank you so much for sharing some of those details with us. And a shark that can burp, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, our first class, Mrs. Pearson's grade 4-3s are joining us in Calgary, Alberta. Let me turn their microphone on. Calgary.
Click. The most dangerous predator.
What's the most dangerous predator?
For the sharks.
For the sharks. Oh, so most sharks actually don't have that many natural predators, as they are the top predator in their food chain. However, to be honest, it's people. So most shark species, their population has decreased 80 to 90% in the past 30 years, and that's because of humans. We hunt them for their fins, which are not really used for food. The food that we do consume from the ocean, we are taking away from their natural prey, so that means there's less food available for the sharks to eat. And then on the other end, we're also leaving different environmental hazards in the water, which are not so good for the sharks. So we are definitely not the best for these animals. And that's one of the best things about having sharks in aquariums, is so that they can be used to inspire people like you, so that you can go out and help them in their natural habitat, and so that we here at the aquarium can learn from them to promote their life in the wild.
All right, great question to start us off. Let's go to Mrs. Pearson's class, grade 4s, joining us in the United States. Let me turn the microphone off. How are we doing, grade 4s?
There we go. Yep. Okay. Okay.
What is the most interesting or exciting thing
I didn't catch that one.
Yeah, can you go a little louder for me, bud?
Yeah.
What is the most interesting or exciting thing you've ever done?
At work, the most interesting and exciting thing? Well, I could say that I got splashed by a shark, which is pretty cool. But the most interesting and exciting thing that I've done for my job is things like this, where I get to watch stuff up close, or feeding some of the animals, which is really amazing and awesome. But to be completely honest with you, this has only come secondary to the look of, wow, that can't be true, when I see children, like, still probably around your age, usually school children. I tell them something really cool, and their jaw just drops to the floor and the tongue rolls out, kind of like Aladdin, the genie from Aladdin. And that's my favorite moment, is when I shock somebody so much about cool aquatic facts that they have to drop their whole jaw to the ground.
All right, excellent. So I'm sure that burping fact worked on some of the classrooms as well. Let's go to Mrs. Goff's class. They're grade 3s joining us in San Antonio, Texas. How we doing, San Antonio?
We're good. We're awesome.
Ooh, that's grade 3.
We have Naomi here. She has a question.
Nice and loud.
She said, how long do sharks live?
Oh, how long do sharks live? That's an excellent question. So sharks live usually about 30 years. In an aquarium setting, they usually have a longer lifespan, as there are no predators, there's a good amount of food resources, and they have really good medication, and we're watching out for if they have any ailments. Most small sharks live to about 10 years old, and most large sharks live 30 years, and the oldest shark ever recorded was estimated close to 300 years, and that's the Greenland shark. So they do have a wide variety of different ages, but this type of shark we're looking at right now, the sand tigers, most likely will live to 30, with the maximum ever recorded being close to 45, 50, and that was an aquarium setting animal. Sharks are really hard to tell how old they are in the wilds. In an aquarium, they live here, so we don't really know how old they were when they got here, but we know how long they've been living here. In the wild, the easiest way to tell is by tagging them, like you might do for your pets, and then you can read the tags, because you know that if you have the first one, you see them again when they're alive, then you know that that's how long that they have been living with the tag.
All right, let's jump to our next classroom. This time we're going to go to Mrs. Thurston's class, grade 5s, joining us in Ontario, Canada, Elmdale. Let me turn their microphone on. How are we doing, grade 5s? All right.
How many sharks do you have?
How many sharks?
How many sharks do you have?
So we actually have an incountable number of sharks in our entire aquarium, because the white spotted bamboo sharks keep having babies. The sand tiger sharks, I think we have 11 sand tiger sharks. It was just confirmed. And then we have the other types of sharks that live in this habitat, other than the sand tigers, are the nurse sharks, which I didn't see any recently, but and then we also have one sandbar shark who's bolting around. There he is. And then we have 2 green sawfish and 1 stingray in here as well.
All right, jump into our next classroom. We're going to go to...
Oh, this is a nurse shark, by the way.
Good timing.
You know.
We're going to go to Mr. Bell's class now. They are in Floridale, Ontario, grade 2 and 3. Let me turn their microphone on. How are we doing, 2-3s? Mr. Bell, oh, there it is. It's on now. Perfect. I'm going to take it off.
How many different kinds of colors?
Can you go a little louder?
How many different kinds of sharks are there?
In the world? How many different kinds of sharks are there in the world?
Sharks are there?
Yeah, in the world.
In the world? Okay,
Yeah.
so there are close to like 450 to 500 different types of sharks in the world, different species. We don't really know how many in general, like specifically there are, because we're still finding more species of sharks. At our aquarium, we have 13 different species. So that's not near as many as there are in the world, which is somewhere between 450 and 500 sharks. There's many different types, and not all of them look drastically different from each other like the 3 we have in here. That just makes it easier for you to tell them apart. There are some sharks that all look very similar to each other, and only experts can really tell them apart from the 2. So for my big example for that is the sandbar shark and the blacktip reef shark, which really do look very similar to each other.
All right, in our final live class joining us, we have Mrs. Moss and Foster's group, grade 2, joining us in Sterling, Ontario. Let me turn their mic on. How are we doing, grade 2s?
Good.
All right, who's got a question?
Is a whale shark a whale or a shark?
That's awesome. So is a whale shark a whale or a shark? And the answer is a shark. And I know they have both names, and that's not because they were misnamed initially, which does happen a lot with different animals, especially the ones that live underwater. But a whale shark is actually a shark that likes to eat plankton, and that's why they got their name. Because a lot of whales, large whales, like to eat small, tiny animals called plankton, and that's the same stuff that a whale shark eats. And I know in the movie Finding Dory, they call her a whale. She's actually a shark and an animal that cannot breathe oxygen from the air, just like all other sharks. They breathe oxygen from the water.
All right, and I've got a question from online that just came in from Mrs. ESL's group. I think they're a grade 2 classroom, and they're wondering the sand tiger sharks at the aquarium, how old are they?
We're not exactly certain how old they are. Our aquarium's been open for 5 years, and most of the sand tiger sharks have been here for 6. And they're definitely over 10 years old because of their size. However, other than that, like knowing that they're at least 15 or 16, that's all I know. They are all from the wild, so we really don't know how old they are when they got here.
All right, we have a few more time, or a little bit more time for some more questions. So if I should come back to your class, boys and girls, give me a big wave at the camera, and that'll tell me I need to come back. Oh, let's start off with Mrs. Goff's group, grade 3. Your microphone's on. Sorry, was that, how did you start working at the aquarium?
No, how did you get the sharks into the tank?
Oh, so over there, you can see like a little hole, I'll point to it there. That's where the backup house area is for this habitat, and we have a big crane back there. So the big sharks come in on a big truck, and when we have sharks coming in on a big truck, We have a well in the back, has water. We're always monitoring the animals. They are never housed with another shark. They're always brought separately. So our big truck only holds 3 sharks. As we have more than 3 sharks, it took a couple trips. And then we truck them usually from Florida area to here. It takes a lot of paperwork and time. And then once they're here, they go through the ability, then we take them on a crane to where they have to go. So we're not craning them out of water because that's unsafe for the animals. We put them in a bucket that has wheels, and then we push them to where they have to go with the crane, help supporting the weight of the animal because they are fairly heavy. And then we pick them up from there, put them into the whole area right over here, and then they swim out into the big area because they truly don't like small spaces. So they're fairly claustrophobic, so they usually don't go back there anymore after the first time that they're here. And then they get used to swimming around. They know they're in a new habitat now, so they know where to come to get food. They do go through quarantine before they get here to make sure anything from the wild that would danger our other animals is not on them. So it will make sure that our animals are nice and safe.
All right, where should I go next? Who's got another question? All right, Mrs. Thurston's class, your microphone is on.
Scuba dive in the shark tank.
Have I ever scuba dived in the shark tank? No, I have not. And that's because I don't actually have my scuba diving license, and I would love to get it. That's my new goal. I know Joe is a big scuba diver, and everyone else you've seen in this video is actually an aquarist. So that means they look after the animals, and they all have their scuba diving license, and they've all definitely been in this habitat before. They all talk about how amazing it is. I've just never done it. So that's one of those things that's on the list.
All right, well, I highly recommend it. I was just in California diving in the kelp forest a couple weeks ago, and it was awesome. Which
That's
actually,
amazing.
we're doing a kelp forest hangout, I believe, on the 28th.
Yeah,
that'll be a lot.
that's the next one.
All right, give me another wave. Where should I go now? Oh, there we go. Let's go to Mrs. Mossman Cross's grade 2. Your microphone is on.
Salt water.
I didn't catch that one.
Try that one more time.
Do sharks only live in the salt water?
The sharks only live in salt water, and the blanket answer for that is yes. However, there's some exceptions because there are some sharks that can kind of change the way that their body works to migrate into fresh water. So they start out in salt water, and then when they get older, they are able to live in the freshwater habitat, but it's a lot of stress on their body, so most animals don't do that. And the big example of that is the bull shark, which is a very large animal native to Australian waters. So these sharks that we have here, they have to live in salt water or their bodies don't really work properly. So if you ever go to an aquarium and you're wondering, is it salt water or freshwater? Look for a shark. If there's a shark, it's salt water.
All right, Mrs. Pearson's class, do you have another question?
How do sharks hunt?
How do sharks hunt? So sharks have the use of this, so they're really good smelling. So when they sense an animal in distress, they will smell that animal from farther away. And then when they get a little bit closer, close to a couple meters away, they can actually sense how it is swimming in the water. And based on that, they're gonna either go toward it or swim away. So if it's something that they want to eat, they'll go toward it. And if it's maybe they're not hungry or they don't really feel like eating that, then they'll swim away and just ignore it. And then if they're going to go toward it and hunt, they will open up their mouth big and wide, and you'll see the second jaw of teeth if you don't already see it before, because some sharks have a retractable jaw, and they will open up their mouth big and wide and chomp down on the food, usually swallowing it whole. But if they're a type of shark that is meant to cut flesh, like a cookie cutter shark, they're only going to cut part of the shark, their prey off, and then eat that. Sand tiger sharks don't do that. They are a swallow whole type of animal, so their teeth are more to grab instead of to cut and to demolish. So they'll put it in their mouth, they'll chomp it a couple times, then swallow it whole.
All right, and then Mrs. Gertzman, your microphone's on, and we'll visit Mr. Bell's class, and then we'll be done for today.
Sand tiger sharks and their families.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that one.
Do Do sand tiger sharks live in families?
Do sand tiger sharks live in families? And the answer is no. So sharks, most of them live all by themselves, and don't think that they're lonely. They're just not an animal that likes to live with their friends or family. Usually they spend their life being pretty solitary until they mate, and then they're by themselves again. There are some exceptions in the shark world. So once a year in the Galapagos area, the hammerhead sharks do come together and school. So there are some sharks that do live in groups for certain times of the year, usually for mating purposes. However, most often they are a solitary animal. They like to live solitary lives. And that's actually really cool that this animal can survive and hunt really well without using a pack to hunt. So they can hunt lots of fish with only just one animal.
All right, and Mr. Bell, if you don't mind turning your microphone on for me, you can have the final question. Nice and loud if you guys have another question. I can hear the microphones on. Oops, just got turned off.
How big can the sharks get?
How big can the sharks get? So sand tiger sharks usually aren't the largest shark in the world. So ours, as I said before, are close to 10 feet long and 400 pounds. And I think the biggest one is probably closer to 500 to 600 pounds, not really much larger. And they could probably get to about 12 feet long. They're not a really large shark in general. There are other sharks out there that are much larger than sand tiger sharks, which makes the sand tiger shark a really nice animal to have in aquariums. They look ferocious because of their teeth, and they have that typical shark shape because they're really closely related to great white sharks. However, they're pretty docile and scaredy cats, and they just look ferocious. They're excellent to have in aquariums. They are fine with the smaller space that aquariums provide because obviously we can't be the ocean, and they are really awesome at getting awareness out about sharks because everyone thinks they're scary and then you see a diver in the water and the sand tiger sharks just don't care. They usually stay away.
All right, well, boys and girls, thank you so much for hanging out with us today, and thank you for the awesome questions as per usual. Danielle, thank you so much for, again, another awesome hangout full of great information from the aquarium. And you'll have to thank Pierre for us as well for doing a great job.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah, he ran out of food.
All right, well, the last thing we'll do is we'll turn the microphones on. Boys and girls, if you want to get nice and loud and say goodbye and thank you, and then we'll sign off for today. So here we go. Microphones are coming on. Nice and loud, boys and girls.
Here we go. Thank you.
All right. Well, once again, thanks everybody for a great hangout. Thank you so much, Danielle, and we'll see you again at the end of the month.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. We'll see you at the end of the month.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye, boys and girls.